So hello guys, welcome to my channel. So today in this video we will discuss about the Leetcode POTD problem. Find all groups of farmland. Okay, so before moving towards the problem, let's talk a little bit about myself. My name is Sushil De. I am specialist at Code Forces and I am knight at Leetcode. I have solved more than 900 problems at Code Forces and have solved more than 600 problems at Leetcode. So now let's move towards the problem. So what is given here is that let's first read the problem statement here. So you are basically given a zero indexed m cross n binary matrix land where a 0 represents a hectare of forest land and 1 represents a hectare of farmland. Okay, that means basically a 2D matrix is given consisting of m rows and n number of columns, where each cell either will be 0 or will be 1, and 0 represents forested land and 1 represents a farmland. Okay, now what is said that to keep the land organized, there are designated rectangular areas of hectares that consist entirely of farmland. These rectangular areas are called groups. Okay, that means to keep the land organized, there are designated rectangular areas, okay, that is entirely consist of farmland. That means there are only ones, there are no zeros inside that group. These rectangular areas are called groups. No two groups are adjacent, meaning farmland in one group is not four directionally adjacent to another farmland in different group. Okay, so that simply means that in the matrix there are several groups of farmland, okay, and that entirely consist of ones. There are no zeros inside. Okay, and for example, if I draw it here, this will be much more clear. For example, the the land, the 2D matrix is given as follows. uh, this is basically a 3 cross 3 matrix where each cell is can be either 1 or 0. 1 represents basically farmland, it represents farmland, and 0 basically represents forest land. Okay, and now each group consists of ones. Okay, and this is rectangular in shape and there is no zeros inside. So there are two forests, there are two farmlands. Okay, this is one farmland and this is another farmland. There are total two farmlands, right? So now what is given here is that, let's read further. The land can be represented by a coordinate system where the top left corner is 0, 0 and the bottom right corner of land is m minus 1, n minus 1. That means the top left cell is 0, 0. Here the top left cell is this particular cell. This is the top left cell and this is the bottom right cell. Okay, so here the index of that cell is basically 2, 2, and the index of the top left cell is 0, 0. Okay, so in this way we will signify the cells. And then what is said here that uh, find the coordinates of the top left and bottom right corner of each group of farmland. This line is very important, that we have to find the top left and the bottom right corner of each farmland. Okay, that means in this example there are two farmlands, right? This is one farmland and this is the second farmland. Okay, so and the first farmland, the top left cell is this particular cell. This particular cell is the top left cell here. Okay, this particular cell is the top left cell here. So this will be the top left cell and this particular cell is the top right cell and corresponding to the index 1, 1. Okay, so by these two indexes we will signify this particular farmland. This particular farmland is denoted by these two indexes. Okay, the top left cell and the bottom right cell. So here what is given here, a group of farmland with a top left corner r1, c1 and a bottom right corner at r2, c2 is represented as 4 length array r1, c1 and r2, c2. That means here this particular group will be represented as 0, 0, 1, 1, where these first two indexes basically signifies the top left cell and the last two cells signify the bottom right cell. Okay, and we have to return a 2D array. We have to return basically a 2D array containing the 4 length arrays described above for each group of farmland in the land. Okay, so that means we have to find the number of groups. We have to find basically all the groups present in this land, and then we have to store the groups as these 4 length arrays, where the first two indexes represent the top left cell of that particular group and the last two cells basically represents the bottom right cell of that particular group. Okay, so in this fashion we have to store each group in the 2D array and have to return. That means that for example there is a land, okay, and there are several groups, and we have to basically return a 2D array called answer. Okay, where we have to store each group present in the land. Okay, and each group is represented by 4 indexes. Okay, the first two index basically corresponding to the indices of the top left cell and the last two indices basically corresponding to top right cell. In this manner we have to store each group by 4 integers, and finally we have to return this 2D matrix. Okay, so what we will do here, here basically we will try to solve this problem using BFS traversal. Okay, so let's take an example. Okay, so here is basically 2D matrix is given of 3 cross 4 length. Okay, and what we will do that we will start to traverse through the 2D matrix. Okay, in this fashion we will start to traverse to this 2D matrix, and whenever we encounter unvisited land, whenever we encounter a unvisited farmland, that means encounter a 1, then we will start to BFS traversal from this particular position. Okay, and in this BFS traversal we are only allowed to move in these two directions. Okay, that is from towards the right and towards the bottom. In these two directions we are allowed to move. That means if we are currently standing in I comma j location, we are only allowed to move I comma j plus 1 and I minus 1 I plus 1 comma j. These two locations are allowed from this location. Okay, so in this fashion we will do BFS traversal and simultaneously marked all the cells as visited as we move towards the cell. Okay, and finally we will store the index of first one, the first unvisited one, that is basically the top left cell. Okay, we will store that position in the first two index of our array, and the last two last two digit will be the index of the bottom right cell. Okay, that is R2 comma C2. Okay, so in this example we will first encounter this unvisited one, and then we start to do BFS traversal and visit all the ones one by one. Okay, then we move forward, then we encounter this unvisited one, then again we will do BFS traversal and store the topmost and the bottom rightmost cell in our array, and in each iteration we will store this array corresponding to once again this array corresponding to 4 digits. We will push this 4 length array in our 2D answer, vector. Okay, so that is the case. So basically let's take an example here. So in this example, see carefully, the land cell is given as 1 0 0 0 1 1 and 0 1 1. So here the first group is this cell, and here it is represented as a 4 length array. Okay, where the first 2 digit is represented as the top left cell, and the last 2 digit, that is these 2 cells, represent the bottom rightmost cell. Okay, and this is the second group. In the second group, the top left cell is basically the cell corresponding to the index 1 comma 1, and the bottom rightmost cell is basically this cell corresponding to the index 2 comma 2. Okay, if I write here in this question, the cell given is 1 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1. Okay, so here there are two groups of farmland, one is this and one is this. So this one will be represented as 0 comma 0 and 0 comma 0, because the first that is basically the top leftmost cell is basically 0 comma 0, and the bottom rightmost cell is also 0 comma 0. So this first group is represented by this array, and the second group will be represented by 1 comma 1, because the index of this one is 1 comma 1, and this particular one having index 2 comma 2. So here the group will be represented by these 4 digits. Okay, so in this fashion we will whenever we find an unvisited one, we will do a BFS traversal from that particular one and store the corresponding top left cell of their group in our array, and the bottom right cell in our array, and finally store the 4 length array, 4 sized array inside our 2D vector. Okay, so these two arrays will be stored inside our 2D vector. Let's say this is our 2D answer vector, and we will store these two arrays inside our vector. So and finally we have to return this. So now is the so now is this clear that I am storing these 4 sized vectors in these 2D vectors, and finally we return this answer. Okay, and this will be much more clear if we try to do the code. So let's move towards the coding part. So let's declare first of all, let's take the number of rows, storing the number of rows inside n, storing the number of rows and here we will store the number of columns. Okay, now we will declare here a map, okay, that will be used as our visiting purposes. Okay, by using this map we will mark the cells which are visited once. So name this as visit, and now we will simply traverse to the 2D matrix. Now if we encounter a cell which is equal to 0, that means this is basically a forest land, or if that particular cell is already visited, then we will simply ignore that particular cell and will not move forward. Okay, so we will write here the continuous statement, and otherwise if the cell is 1 or it is unvisited, in that case we will move forward. Okay, so we will simply declare a queue for doing BFS traversal, and we'll push this particular index inside our queue, and we'll mark this particular index as visited. Okay, and then we will start our BFS traversal. Here I am declaring a vector temp of length 4. Okay, and the first 2 indexes will store the indexes of the top left cell. Okay, so for example here temp0 will store I and temp1 will store j, right? And then we'll move forward inside our queue. So we will store the front element of our queue in a temp variable. Then we will store the corresponding row in x, that will be the temp dot first, because we are basically storing queue, the pair of queues. Basically here we are storing pairs inside the queue, right? And the pair comprises of the row number and the column number. So here I am basically accessing the row and storing it in x, and here accessing the columns and storing it in y. Okay, now what I have told you at first, that we are only allowed to move towards right or towards downwards. Okay, that means here there are 2 possible movements. If we are currently in this position, we can move either in this direction or either in this direction. That means let's change if I am at cell I comma j, I can move either I comma j plus 1 or either in this direction, that is I plus 1 comma j. Okay, that means here I am adding plus 1 to the column indexes, and here I am adding plus 1 to the row indexes. That means if I take a vector of possible movements, then there are 2 possible moves. One is 1 comma 0 and the other is 0 comma 1. Okay, these are the possible movements. This first cell signifies movements towards rows, and this cell signifies movements towards columns. Okay, so these are 2 possible movements. So here we will declare a vector of pair called moves, and there are 2 possible movements, that is 1 comma 0, that is plus 1 direction towards row or 1 direction toward column. And then we will simply run the loop here for auto move colon moves, and after moving towards right or down, the indexes will be updated. Okay, and those updated indexes will be stored in xtemp and ytemp. In xtemp I will store the updated value of the row, that will be x plus move first, this will be updated value of the row, and in ytemp we will store the updated value of the column. Okay, So this is our new index after movement. Now we will check if this particular indices is valid or not. Okay, that means it can be outside of the grid, so we will have to check whether this is valid or not. So for that we have to create a function named is valid. So here we will have to create a function name is valid, in which we pass 4 arguments: the updated rows and updated columns and the corresponding size of the matrix. Okay, and what is the criteria for being valid? That the x term must reside within 0, and the length of the rows and the y term must reside within the zeros, and the number of columns. Okay, so this is the criteria for being valid of a particular cell. So first we will check whether the particular cell is valid or not. Then we will check whether this particular cell is farmland or forest land. So here we will checking whether this is one or not, and at last I have to check whether this particular cell is visited or not. That means if mp x underscore temp comma y underscore temp equal to 0, that means this particular cell is unvisited. In that case I will visit this particular cell and mark this as 1, and I will push the corresponding indices inside our queue. Okay, and here we will pop the front element from the queue, and the 4 sized vector that we have declared here. This is basically a 4 size vector, 4 sized vector that will represent a group, right? Where temp 0 is stored I and temp 1 has stored j. Now inside the queue I will store in temp 3 I will store, sorry, I have do a mistake here. I have to pop the element outside of this loop. So here we will do q.pop, and then we basically update our 4 sized array, that is temp 2 equal to x and temp 3 is equal to y. Okay, so what we are generally doing here is that here while traversing through the group using BFS traversal, in each popping of the element we are basically updating our temp array, that basically signifies the group. We are basically storing our x in temp 2 and y in temp 3. Okay, that means in each iteration, in while popping each element, I am basically updating my temp array. Okay, and finally at the end of the group, the remaining cell will be the bottom right cell. Okay, and the indices of the bottom right cell will eventually store in the temp array. So if we see carefully what here I am doing here, when we do BFS traversal, while popping each element from the queue, the last element will be definitely this particular element. Okay, in a group, in a rectangular group, the last element will be this particular element. So while popping this element, we will store the corresponding I comma j in our temp 2 and temp 3. Okay, so here I am basically doing this. Okay, so eventually at last as I am updating the value in each step, at last the bottom right cell will eventually store in our temp array. Okay, and finally after the queue becomes empty, that means at the end of our BFS traversal we will simply push this 4 sized array in our 2D answer vector. So we will push temp here, and here we have to declare a 2D vector that will be our answer. Okay, so now return the answer vector. Now let's run our code. Okay, so there I have done some sort of mistake. Okay, so I have using mp here. This is not mp, this have been declared as the visited map, right? I have named this as visit, so there will be vis, not mp. So here I have to write vis, and here it will also be vis. this will be this, and this will also be this, right? Now let's run the code. Again I have do some mistake. Okay, yeah, I have write temp here. This will be temp, and there is temp. Now I think it will work fine. Okay, now let's submit. Okay, this code is successfully submitted. Here the time complexity is basically big O of n into m. Okay, as we are traversing through the matrix. Okay, and mark each cell as visited, and the space complexity is big O of n into m, as we are using a map here. As I am using map, so this will eventually take logarithmic time. Okay, but we can decrease it by using unordered map. So I am using here unordered map. Okay, now the time complexity is big of n into m. Before this, the time complexity is almost big of log n into m, and now as I am using unordered map, the time complexity reduced to n into m. Okay, now let's run the code again. Okay, I have done some sort of mistake here. Okay, yeah, sometimes there are some problems regarding unordered map. So in this in that case, you can also use 2D vectors. Okay, 2D vectors or 2D array of size n, and I will mark each cell as unvisited. Now this will also work well. Okay, I have to I have to omit these braces. I have to write it differently if I use 2D vector. I have to write shape, and here I also have to omit these braces. I think this will work. Now I think this will work fine, and the time complexity will be order of n into m. Okay, so instead of map, we are using basically a 2D vector here. Okay, so if you understand the solution clearly, then like the video and subscribe to my channel. I will try to upload the Leetcode POTD problems regularly.